I'll do an intro next. I'm Crystal. I'm one of the contributors here at JournoDAO. I was a working photojournalist for a while and been in the Web3 blockchain space off and on since 2017. I'm also a full-time student, and normally I am based in the Rockies. Now I am currently in the sweltering South, living in a crock pot. So that's what I got. And I'm going to kick it over to Nick if you can talk.
Sure. Hey, I'm Nick. I'm on the East Coast. My background is actually in biochemistry, but the last year I've been getting more into on-chain analytics and other crypto-related topics. So I've been doing a lot of research and just kind of networking with people in the industry to get more content out through these publications that is related to how people are moving money in the space. Has anybody not gone yet?
How about Ryan? I don't think we heard Ryan.
Hey, yeah, Ryan. I'm just interested in the DAO space in general. Really excited to see what JournoDAO turns into. Involved in a few other DAOs like CityDAO and DeSci World, and just hanging out, seeing what's going to happen.
Cool. Thank you, Ryan. And I believe Ryan is going to be joining us tomorrow on our Twitter Spaces if we're still on for that. Is it Lorado? Did I pronounce that correctly? Or Pizza Guy?
Yeah. Well, Larato, but Larato also works. That's also fine. Hey guys. Sorry, I have my video off because it's like 10 o'clock here in South Africa. And I look horrible, so please excuse me. But yeah, so I'm actually working mostly in PubDAO. Thanks to Cinematic for the invite to JournoDAO. Very much, just interested in decentralizing media and publishing, and what decentralized news is possibly going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years or more. So yeah, I've just been following what you guys are doing as well, and just keen to watch the journey and also see how it can help out in small ways, big ways, we'll see going down the line.
Awesome. And finally, I think we're down to Spencer. If you're in a place where you can say hey and introduce yourself real briefly.
Oh, yeah, I just found out Cinematic's name was Spencer like last week. But anyway.
Yeah, it's good to see you here. Glad you showed up. I met Eric in the PubDAO server as well until he split off into JournoDAO with more of a focus on journalism, or it started off with the focus on media in general, because that was when PubDAO was kind of more focused on Web3 kind of technical promotional content, which it still is. But that was the pretext for my getting involved with JournoDAO and this kind of founding vision. And it's been fascinating so far. It's a great professional network and community to be a part of.
Yeah, man. Thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it. Yeah,
of course.
Cool. Well, maybe to kick things off, I have a rather long agenda, although it's like a lot of stuff that if you don't get to it, it's nothing is going to fall apart. But maybe we could kind of start. Should we start with going through the newsletter to get the folks that are new here kind of acquainted with what's been going on? Crystal, do you have that in front of you? If not, I can pull it up.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, so we minted we actually minted 2 more NFTs. The 3rd NFT was minted as we were writing this, and I did ping the mystery person. I have not heard yet if that is who it is, so I will not say anything. So anyway, yeah, it's exciting. So our number 2 NFT was minted by Matt Gray, who's the CEO of Focher and one of our community members. So we're really excited that they got to hop in there. And definitely hop over the newsletter and follow them on Twitter and follow their app too. They're doing some really amazing stuff in breaking news and minting from mobile devices directly on chain, which is really cool. Let's see. We had our Twitter Spaces in the town hall from last week. We're in planning mode for quite a few events actually, which is kind of nice that we might have like treasury funds now for these things. So we've got the Online News Association conference in LA, MCon in Denver, and Media Party in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And our Telegram group, the link is up there in the newsletter. If anybody's going to hop into these events, definitely join the Telegram group because we're going to sync up and meet up. We announced a partnership with Factland, and I'm going to let Keith dive into that for the details on that. We also have our collaboration with JournoDAO is moving forward. We're helping them with develop a platform called Chainverse and working on some blockchain investigative reporting, doing some data entry, but also helping them structure the app itself. So that's interesting. I'll let Eric dive into those details too. Yeah, and our Twitter Spaces tomorrow is going to be really good. So definitely hop into that if you can. CityDAO is going to be joining us to talk about DAO structures and legal questions, which in a lot of the DAOs that I'm hopping in and out of, that seems to be a very common theme. Like, how do we pay each other? How do we do it so we all won't get arrested or taxed horribly at the end of it all? So definitely a common theme. Yeah, and that's the gist of it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Elaborate on
Thank you.
the Factland thing real quick. Since I do most of the development for both JournoDAO and Factland, I've just kind of been going back and forth, making sure everyone's on board for just making the collaboration and partnership official there. And Factland is in a demo phase right now, but the idea is to like crowdsource fact checking using some cool incentive models with a fact token. Basically people staking what they think is true and then adjudicating it by a randomized jury. And then so yeah, I think the first idea is maybe putting like a band on our website and Factland's website with maybe logos or just somehow like linking our home pages, and then we can kind of talk more about like further collaboration and stuff. I know that Factland right now really needs content to kind of fill it up with like things that need to be adjudicated and kind of like get a feel for the mechanics that we've like gone over in our heads but haven't seen played out like in real life. So if anyone's interested in that, then hit me up. It's factland.org. You can check it out there.
Thanks. I can talk about the JournoDAO stuff just a little bit. It's yeah, so primarily JournoDAO is working on, they're really data science people, and they're working on a platform to really kind of where you can, it's almost like they describe it as like a Google for Web3. So it's it's a potential search tool where you can kind of dig into a lot of the relationships between the people and organizations in Web3 to try to get a better sense of what's going on in and between communities. And so they have a talent network of which we're one member, and that's basically people that are in the system fooling around with the prototype and adding as much information and actually creating those connections that can then be searched and graphed later. And so we've been in there like working with the prototype and working with them and developing it with an eye to what would make sense for not just journalists but analysts and other researchers and people that are trying to dig into what's really going on beneath the hype and the marketing of Web3 for whatever purpose that is. Information wants to be free, right? So and that kind of leads into discussion that we're having on DMs before this, which is the fact that we actually have a small amount of funding now through the NFTs that have begun to be minted, and we have received funds from JournoDAO that are getting paid out to our folks that are working with them. And full disclosure, that's myself, Crystal, and Nick. But we don't have a lot of formal management around particularly finances and some of these projects and things that are growing really quickly. So I thought maybe we could begin to discuss creating a little bit more organization about what is going on around here. And I think at the same time, that'll create some opportunities for folks to get more involved and help the folks that are new on the call today figure out where maybe they could slot in or contribute or decide that to run away from us screaming. And then I think that also leads into some of the voting app and the governance stuff that you've been working on. So that's a lot. And I guess I'd like to pause there because we've been talking for like 15 minutes, and to see if any of the new folks have any questions or comments that they want to get in. Perhaps if you're not able to be here for the whole time, I just want to give any of the new folks the opportunity to chime in or ask questions, and then also Keith or Crystal or Spencer or Jennifer or any of the folks who are normally around here could chime in on that. So I'll open up to a free for all, I suppose.
Oof, this is a tough one. Sorry, because it's like 10:30. So my brain is so dead. But yeah, so the question I had was, I don't know if there's a roadmap that's available in terms of what JournoDAO is trying to accomplish. I guess in the coming 6 months or a year or so.
We had a roadmap that was created, and it is still available, and it has not really been updated much. But I suppose what we have really is kind of a couple of main buckets that we're trying to create, and I think the first bucket is as kind of a place to catch people who are coming into Web3 from the more traditional media world, and to help get them up to speed with what is going on in Web3 and understand what's happening. And then as those people coming in, beginning to act as a professional network for those people, so that we are building up our own network of media savvy Web3 folks. And by the way, we found that this works in both directions, where traditional media people come to us looking for information about how Web3 works, but also people who are Web3 native have come to us trying to figure out how to navigate the more traditional media world. So there's kind of an exchange there, and an opportunity to kind of act in almost like a consulting role, which is a little bit what is going on with JournoDAO that I was describing earlier. So that's like part one, is this kind of information exchange and professional network, and then part two is working as an incubator to build actual tools and projects and concepts at that intersection between Web3 and media. And we've got a few that are, we have one that's kind of stalled with Streamer. It's been a little bit stalled since the crypto crash. And then I would file our partnerships with Factland and Focher under that as well. Am I leaving anything out? Anyone else want to jump in on that?
I think those are the main things, and the founder NFT is kind of I don't know if it's its own project or whatever, but it's trying to seed a community with people who want to get us off the ground with funding to kind of execute on this stuff, and then in exchange, the NFT holders get access to everything that we create.
And one thing I'll add is, if you look at our website and some of the things that we've been talking about, the longer term part of that roadmap is a few months back we set kind of an ambitious stretch / meme goal that we want to buy a newspaper. So the idea is catch these people, bring them up to speed on Web3, develop tools and projects at the intersection of Web3 and media. And then once those are developed, probably a few years down the road, we buy an actual local newspaper and implement those tools and try to basically use an otherwise probably struggling local newspaper as kind of a sandbox to test these Web3 tools for journalism in the real world. And so one thing I actually wanted to bring up today is if in the fallout of the crypto crash of later, I don't know if it's crypto winter yet, but in the fallout of things having been better in crypto, is that goal of buying a newspaper maybe a little tone deaf right now? Is that something we want to consider changing up or pivoting from, or am I the only one that's thinking that way?
I mean, I guess unless we can find a publication that's really into these technical ideas, like maybe the one Crystal suggested, if that could be a good lead for like a group of journalists who are really interested in exploring this technology anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if that one's going to really be the first lead, because it's a community of non-technical people completely.
Okay.
So I think that is going to take a longer time, and there are because it's involved with the universities, there's going to be some heavy lifting. I think that once concept is proven, I think it would be an excellent candidate for what we're trying to do. And when I explained it to the professor in charge, he was like, absolutely. And the professor is in his late 70s. So we had to explain it over beers with like a piece of paper and like bubbles. So yeah.
Eric, can you explain why you think it's tone deaf, or what I guess I'm not seeing the issue or the relationship?
I guess just the notion that like this kind of came out of the wake of Constitution DAO and Moon DAO and all these other things, when the price of ETH was really high and it was more of a bull market than a bear market, and so people were a lot more likely to YOLO into the project. Where now, I guess I worry that like the headlines have and the bear market has kind of turned against crypto a little bit. I guess I worry that like being out there and like pushing the message of we're the Web3 crew that's going to buy a newspaper, if it might be more likely to elicit eye rolls at this point. So it's total. I mean, I'm still sincere about that actual mission of like, yeah, I actually would want to see if we can get Web3 tools and inject them into community journalism, because I think they would be a net win. I just wonder that like in terms of like messaging for the organization, if that is the thing to emphasize right now, or if it's more like we're going to hunker down and build during crypto winter or whatever this is
Mm-hmm.
more the way to go.
Well, I think it's more suspicious if we just kind of drop that messaging and have it be contingent upon the bull market, which I don't think for us it was. It's like these papers are still in trouble like this. It's still like the problem hasn't gone away, and so I think, I don't know, if anything, it gives us credibility. Like if things do start pumping and be people think it's a cash grab, we can point to the fact that we've always been about this, and it's never been about the speculation or the market or anything.
Okay.
I had a question about that. I was curious if there's any sort of like technical details on the execution of that or parameters. For example, does the newspaper have to be based in the United States? If you actually did buy a newspaper, are you planning on actually printing a physical newspaper in like a limited run? So it's like a collectible thing. On the other side, would you turn issued digital versions into NFTs, et cetera, et cetera? Just any ideas around the actual execution?
I think we've had a few. Eric can kind of speak to the community token aspect of it, but I think generally we want to empower like the community to own and operate the paper that serves their interests. But all the ideas you mentioned sound like they could be in the mix, or at least worth trying. I don't think anybody knows what the right model is, and each paper will probably end up being unique in what they need and what their community wants.
And like one of the animating factors of the mission here, and I think I speak for most of us, is really a focus on local journalism and community journalism, and just the fact that I technically live in a news desert. There's a decent newspaper in my town, but it's like the only one in the county. And you can drive almost all the way to Oklahoma from where I am in northern New Mexico, and you go through all these towns that have no local news source. So it's like the definition, both climatologically and socially, of a news desert. And like that's one of like the animating concerns of JournoDAO is seeing Web3 as a potential engine for building up value in local journalism in a new way, and hopefully building up value in smaller, more neglected communities in that way. And I say all this because I think it's important to what Keith is saying, is that we haven't selected or even really come close to well, I guess we have a few leads, but we haven't really begun any serious conversations with communities that would be interested in working with us on this experiment. And so I think it would be how it would be executed, like you're asking, would be driven by what works best in the specific community that we end up working with.
And now that we think more about it, sorry, I'll just say that it might end up looking something like Seed Club or something, where each paper and its community is different, but we kind of like help guide them through like the tooling and the model, and how to get to launch, basically. Like I don't think any of us want to like impose something like externally on some community.
So I just wanted to chime in as well. When we look at a mission such as buying a newspaper and local news, and we're in Web3 with a community of people from like the globe that are coming together with an interest to learn from each other in different ways. Whether or not somebody stands and believes or that they want to be part of a local paper or not, I feel like there's also another component and mission of the community that is just obviously we're speaking to, which is that we're really learning and paving, or this DAO is like meant to be learning how to create the best DAO, as well as one that's going to be an incredible opportunity for independent journalists that care about the truth and care about finding tools, whether it's to be a part of a local paper or to be in Ukraine, doing, reporting on the ground where they are. So, I mean, I think it's like twofold, right? There's like this really nice mission of like that you guys even created to even come together. And then there's what's happening, right? The flexibility of what's really happening here, which is look at the new faces coming to the platform to learn from each other. So whether or not the mission fits or not, you're in a room full of these knowledgeable people that are experimenting every day innovatively with these tools. So I think that's like the twofold, right? And I just want to say that because people do come and then they say, well, that's not our mission, but you're actually bringing together like very reputable journalists here. So anyway, it's not to go to an event and report on the crypto news, but are we going to go to an event, drink some beers, and talk about like all the tools we're using? Oh yeah. And then maybe how we can help others that don't have access to these tools on a local level. So I just want to state that because I feel like it's something that I needed to clarify anyway in my own head.
Yeah, I mean, and thank you for that, Jennifer. In a way, it's definitely kind of a wide open canvas. I mean, we've had people come into the community with specific skills. I'm thinking of like Justin, who's a developer for Parity and works with Substrate, which is at the basis of the Polkadot ecosystem. And people like that have come in with those sort of skills and have kind of, we've been having conversations about potential ways to integrate those skills into what we're doing here. So like, it's been really fun. Like like you're saying, Jennifer, like everyone brings like particular skills and background to this community that show potential to, just basically advance the mission of improving journalism, frankly. So it's also, like wide open, for new folks here. If there's, whatever you're excited about that, we think we could collaborate on, that you might be interested in getting involved with, or whether it's, championing something or, just helping out with writing the newsletter or something, like all those things are great and valuable. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, and I'll just say if you feel like you want to contribute but you don't have any ideas, we're slowly amassing like some things that like we know would be really promising, but nobody has either the time or the skills to do. So you can just ask anyone you see on this call, probably.
I had one or two thoughts come to mind from the convo. One is perhaps like there might be a difference between a goal and a mission, and that like there could be lots of goals along the way that might change. And then like there might be something like missions underneath is one thought that came to mind. Another thing I was wondering about, maybe a question, like on buying a newspaper, we were talking about those two categories of people, sort of the journalist crowd who wants to learn about Web3 and then the Web3 crowd who wants to learn about journalism. I'm curious whether we have an anecdotal sense of whether the buying a newspaper landed differently or like with those two groups, or whether it was kind of received like it, similarly across those groups.
That's a good question. I have no idea. Anyone have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Matt, my guess for that, not that we have, like testimony from people in both of those camps, but my guess is that the Web3 native people would just be excited about a DAO doing anything so bold and ambitious as that. And then the journalists may want more of like a concrete answer for like why bother with this technology. Like I would imagine we'd be met with more skepticism from the journalists than the Web3 native people generally. That'll be my suspicion.
I mean, I guess I'm coming from the Web3 camp wanting to learn more about traditional journalism. So, like I run a YouTube program. I've created my own radio station. There's a part of me that's always envied the establishment side of, radio, the morning shock jock radio type of stuff. And then on the other token, I would think that the establishment kind of envies the freedom and creativity that a lot of people like me have. So you can learn from each other. What would Web3 people
what would they benefit from buying a newspaper, like a traditional newspaper, and what types of things would they inject into a traditional newspaper that they, in their wildest dreams of becoming, established, what would they do with that tool of having their own newspaper printing press, for instance? I don't know what I would print in that, coming from a Web3 point of view, but it's, something to consider, I guess. And what would established journalists do if they were given unlimited creative freedom as well? So yeah.
I know when just this last week when I was talking to the two career journalists that I met with, they're both academics, but they spent 3 to 4, maybe more decades as working journalists on small and large levels. And when I approached them with the concept, it was more about preserving their work and protecting their work, and then also regenerating and putting sustainability into community media. Those are the two things that are the most interesting to them. That's what they want to see happen. They don't really care that it happens through a technological platform. I mean, they're open to learning it for sure. Like my one mentor, he's like, please make me a tutorial when you're done and walk me through it like I'm a 5-year-old. So so they definitely want to learn it, but it's more about protecting and making it sustainable for the next generation.
I guess I'll go ahead.
Wow, this is a question for you, Eric. You're saying that you were wanting to buy like a locally focused newspaper, something that represents the grassroots of the community. I don't know if you have these. Do you have community impact in your area?
No, what's that?
It's kind of a franchise type of newspaper, but it focuses on different districts of the city, and they have them in Austin, and I believe they have them in Houston and Dallas. But they focus. They're newspapers that go out to only the south central side of Austin, for example, and it gives the housing market prices of each zip code, all the local little businesses popping up, local zip code oriented type of issues and stuff like that. But they have one central printing station up in North Austin, and then it distributes out to all the different zip codes. And what would a Web3 version of that look like? Like maybe APIs and data feeds that are decentralized, that different entities and departments of the city within certain zip codes could plug into and feed into a particular website that ends up being printed out.
Right. I think that gets into conversations that we've had, like with Rich from Edgeware, and then Crystal also has kind of like an Ethereum, an ENS based conception of what a Web3, not just newspaper, but then it actually ends up becoming like more like a news wire, like more like a Reuters or AP style network media source. And I think that's something that we've kind of begun to think about and begun to flesh out. So I actually think there's a lot of potential there. One thing I was going to add to respond to David was that a couple of the few data points that I would have on that, like I think yeah, the Web3 response, like Spencer was saying, is it's a lot of wag me, and why not? And so like there's definitely that. And I will say, like in the calls that we had with the the people who are putting together the Online News Association conference, and then the other one, the Media Party one in Argentina, they kind of echo what Crystal was saying her mentor said, which is I was expecting more skepticism from them, but the reality is they're like, we're really excited to have you come, just explain the basics of this. Like we need somebody to come and just the proverbial bring people from 0 to 1. And that was, I mean, we didn't even get into in those conversations, we didn't even get into some of the the concerns about the skepticism around climate impact or scams or Ponzi schemes and all that sort of stuff. It was more just like, we need somebody to educate us on the technology.
And to support that too, when I mentioned that we were speaking at ONA, and that we have people from like the Boston Globe hopping into our meetings. And then my photojournalism mentor, I mentioned some of his colleagues that he taught me their work in school. I was like, we're connected on Twitter and they're selling NFTs of their work. And then he just was like, well, you have to teach this to me then. So it immediately removed any skepticism that he was just like, I don't want to learn it. He was like, nope, you got to teach me then. So.
I might add something on that point as well. So a lot of the gaps that you'll find in people that are new or have been here for 5 or 10 years or 2 years, doesn't matter. A lot of the issues that I see coming from distributing information to different pockets of people that have different skills and different knowledge levels and different commitment levels. You're talking about technology in general, and you're talking about blockchain technology as like a separate thing, but they're kind of married in all these different junction points that nobody ever talks about. You know, like Chainlink is one that comes to mind, or no one here is talking about how databases work. But that's a very easy analogy to explain something like blockchain technology to somebody that doesn't. It's just like a technical minefield. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I know things like talking about how a tech startup can be analogous to go watch season 1 of Silicon Valley. It's actually very easy to teach people in that sort of way. And I feel like the more people understand how the knowledge they have, whether it's about social media distribution or content distribution for a newspaper, it all ties together in ways that maybe are becoming more abstract to them because of how diverse the distribution methods are getting. I feel like there's room there to kind of orient people so that we have an understanding of the implications of some of the things we're talking about and the ways that we can retool something for different uses. If I'm talking too abstractly, let me know, but this is kind of like the macro view to me of how people are interacting with technology during COVID to, you know, communicate and coordinate all these different ideas that are floating around.
Yeah, the server thing was one that I used to explain it to one journalist. He was worried about this community newspaper that had been built. The servers were owned by an academic institution. So when I explained decentralization to him from that perspective, he was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, because then nobody can shut down what I've built over 15 years because they own the servers. So that was also a really good entry point to the conversation.
I mean, and that's actually the origin of the purpose of decentralization. It's not about, it's kind of about securing the whole system, but it's also about legal, legal safety, making the internet a global thing that doesn't have national laws applied to it, so that you can rip it apart and just essentially destroy it and politicize it. But people don't get that if you don't explain it to them. And most of the people I talk to actually don't understand why decentralization is important from that perspective. But that's kind of the ugly truth. It's about legal concerns.
Yeah, and I've noticed even I get a little caught up in what is like actually new and what is not. And I think once you're in the space and you kind of like get exposed to it, you realize that like things that sound similar, like sending payments, are not similar, but it's profound that two peers can send money to each other directly without an intermediary. But for the layman, it's just like, well, I can send money to people like through like Apple Pay or Venmo or whatever. So like, what's the big deal? Why is everyone getting so excited about this? And so I think it's kind of incumbent upon us to really like articulate what is new about it, but not, we're not leaving everything behind. Like Nick was saying, it's like, I think technology, just saying that we're using technology might even be better or something. And then like, this is just the best technology for the job in a lot of cases. And we're kind of the first to see those use cases, but everybody's going to be like, glomming onto this at some point in the media industry and like all these institutions.
Can I say something? This is Amy. Is that okay?
Of course.
I just wanted to say, when we educate, when I talk to friends and family, or even people that I barely know about blockchain, we always emphasize autonomy, the sovereignty over your content or your creation or your wallets, and also the immutability of whatever transaction you do, and so many other things. But those are the main things that came up in my mind. So I guess when you present this to other people that is not even familiar, that is something that they would latch on to because they feel like they own it. It's theirs. And if you're able to convey that, especially for creators, because I am with around a lot of artists. I'm actually collaborating with a group of artists for the metaverse, and we can create a newspaper in the metaverse, and it won't even cost you as much as buying the whole newspaper thing, guys. But just saying that when you approach people about this, education is very important because a lot of them are not familiar, but you have to emphasize the value of what this can do for them. That's my main sell to the people that are new in the blockchain arena, Web3. That's all the same.
Yeah,
Can
that's
I
really-
add?
Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, so that was actually very interesting, Amy. My experience in recent history has actually been quite different. So I tried to pitch before I left. So I worked at the Mail and Guardian newspaper, which is a very traditional print magazine focused on politics down here in Africa, across Africa, but mostly in South Africa. And so I was trying to, get us to be more digital, but also, do more tech coverage, and also get into crypto as well, and see how we could, use Web3. And I got major pushback from the CFO, who ironically really understands the space, comes from a TV environment, but is very, very much aware of the digital media space. And his reasoning was, it'd be completely disruptive to the current business model. That being the ads model, that being, print ads, events, the way that it's currently doing things, and going to a community approach, which is untested. I guess from him as a CFO, would be completely irresponsible from a fiduciary perspective. So yeah, I think some people do get it, but I do agree with you that a lot of people don't get it as well. But for the ones that do, it's how do we communicate to get across, to get over that hurdle of the entrenched interest of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But the model that's currently being used is clearly also not very sustainable for the next 10, 20 years. But yeah, I'm rambling now, but that's just my 2 minutes of fame.
Well, for people like that, I think the best argument is that just look back at what the internet did to print ads, and you can say that's happening again with online advertising. Like, you can take it right now, it seems risky, but like if you expand your time horizon, it's actually like way riskier to double down on the thing that's like out the door, even if it means kind of vastly changing your business model or your mission. It's kind of like, I mean, how many times do you have to live through this story. Like, who wants to be the print magazine that held on to, you know, print ads and never got a website up for like 10 years, and, you know, while the internet was happening.
What's the situation in South Africa with local journalism? I mean, you know, in the US, it's like the big guys are doing fine. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the ones you've heard of are all doing fine. But meanwhile, like thousands of smaller places are seeing their newspapers, you know, shut down or struggle. What is it like in South Africa?
Similar. COVID was death. I mean, it wasn't just local papers, like major magazines, like hundreds of titles just off the shelves in months. It was scary to just see, like walking into a shopping mall like 1 month, and the shopping aisles is just like there's half the magazines. The next month there's only a quarter of what they used to be. It was just crazy, just to see how everyone just was so set on the current way of doing things, and the change is still very slow. But yeah, in terms of local, what I've seen is there's a shift away from kind of town by town to like a regional weekly, for local journalism, which is interesting. And to me, it does actually look to be something that's sustainable, because it's something that can be sustained by local business, in terms of ads and support, but also government support from like grant funding level, and for some others who are a bit more entrepreneurial, getting some international grant funding, or some sort of donor funding going, for community journalism, not just written word, but also for radio as well, which is oddly still a very popular medium. But yeah, so yeah, the situation is very dynamic. What's happening a lot now is there's increasing usage of Facebook, but also WhatsApp as a medium. So publications creating mobile friendly publications that are then distributed on channels like WhatsApp or Telegram. Like we have one, I think I'm gonna type it in the chat which you can have a look. Yeah, so something like The Continent, which is, goes to, I don't know how many thousands now every week, and it sources content from all across Africa, and people get it either by email, or WhatsApp or Telegram. But obviously the issues with that is you can't really measure that, or how far it's really going. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. It's hard to keep track.
And you said you left South Africa. You're somewhere in Europe now?
Not yet. So I'm still in South Africa, but I just started a new position working remotely for a startup based in Amsterdam.
Gotcha.
So hopefully I'll be moving there soon. Yeah.
Thanks for staying up late with us.
Of course.
So with everything that is that's going on, I mean, you can kind of bring it back to what's on our plate here. You know, at this point we've got a small amount of ETH from the founders NFT. There's some funds coming from DiamondDAO, which most of that is spoken for labor, although we have had some discussions of maybe putting some of that towards buying our own founder NFTs in the future down the road. So maybe some of that will also come into the treasury. But I think we're kind of at the point where there's enough that I'm still the only person on our wallet. We haven't set up a multi-sig. So yeah, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, where like you're all broke, or Keith or Crystal are going to have to come try to find my house, which technically doesn't have a physical address, and we're gonna have to try to talk to my wife to figure out where the keys for the MetaMask on my laptop are. So it would be a bit of a disaster. So I was saying earlier, I think we might be at the point of putting together, perhaps some committees to begin to kind of structure things, and then that can kind of feed into the governance and voting structure that Keith has already been working on. So, I mean, just off the top of my head, I think it makes sense to maybe have like some sort of a financial fiscal committee, working group, guild, and then we've also got multiple live events coming up. So maybe an IRL working group also makes sense alongside folks working on the educational or professional network side of things. I don't know, just any thoughts on adding a little more structure around here.
I think it sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, same. We use circles or locomotives at All for Climate, and it works really well. I actually really like that concept. So circles are kind of like a collective, and it seems to work pretty good.
Well, I've never. What is the difference? I've never heard this. Circles, locomotives.
So, basically, I don't know if I can explain it well. I have pudding brain, but you have one person that's in charge of the locomotive, and then so like artists, there's an artist locomotive. And then underneath it, everybody that's interested in contributing can participate in that group. So they do their own calls. And then once every 2 weeks, the heads of each circle, each locomotive get together and talk about, the bits and bobbles of what's going on, what needs to happen moving forward. So then they kind of basically would be your core contributors. So they're kind of overseeing that and then trickling that down into their communities that are focused on those initiatives within. So we have like finance, art, writers. I mean, for us, like you just described, it would make sense to have obviously finance, education, professional services, communication, stuff like that.
So they're kind of like pods, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also I think this conversation will be really interesting, Eric, on Thursday. That's tomorrow. Around like the legal structure of DAOs and how things get distributed, and like when you get when you start to use a council, if that means something. So anyway, I think that'll be interesting. But as far as like being productive, I would love to be in like a productive pod or something, and around events or getting the word out there, doing some promotional. I feel like I'd be I'd love to bring some of that energy, So I guess, whenever that comes to be, which it sounds like it's kind of getting to that point, we can go into a bigger pod and then separate, or however you want to do it. But I do have a full-time job and another full-time job, so I've got to be a little bit sensitive to it.
I'm familiar with this dilemma.
Bet neither of them pay as well, though.
No, it's all changing.
Well, I mean, I'm really interested in keeping things like low stress. I know other people on this call have been in other DAOs with me that just kind of attempt to take the contemporary workaholic startup culture and just like put that in a DAO, and like I don't think that's not why I'm here, and I don't think that produces good journalism, and so I'm interested in figuring out ways to keep things low stress. And I mean, look, there's not a lot of money flowing around here. Like you just said, most of us have full-time or at least part-time jobs, or three otherwise. So yeah, like any kind of the locomotive thing sounds interesting. Any kind of structures that people have come across elsewhere that keep the vibe participatory and relatively low stress, because I think, you know, this is a group that's in it for the long haul. We're not trying to 100x in the next 12 months or anything. And again, I think that would be antithetical to the mission, and at least what I'm trying to accomplish. That said, any of those you know, particular areas of focus appeal to anybody?
Yeah, you want to maybe list them out like in the chat or a screen share, and we could just go around. People can say what they're interested in.
Well, okay, so I mean, maybe we just start with like probably the most boring but most pressing one. I think probably is the finance one. Like, I literally think that's a pretty big risk right now to have everything in my MetaMask, and well, and it's other wherever. I think there's some things at stake too. So I think that would, I guess, I'm you know, happy to be on that committee and to help out with it and to get some things so they're not primarily in my hands.
Are you thinking that on an ongoing basis, like every number of token sales that we have, you like periodically shift it over to the treasury, or do you have anything in mind for how to?
I'm thinking about having a group of people to discuss those questions, which we do. I mean, right now we have the core group and these town halls doing that, but also doing that alongside discussing everything else at the same time. So yeah, just having, I mean, it could be as simple as, you know, we've got a Discord channel with our finance committee, like, you know, discussing those things, helping with getting the multi-sig set up, the corporation set up, like all those kinds of, just some place to focus on those questions.
Yeah, I'd like to help out with the nuts and bolts of that.
I just
I'd like
wanted to say,
to-
sorry, I just want to say briefly, tomorrow it's going to be myself and Alex, who's the head of finance at JournoDAO, who I've been working with closely. So anyone that's interested, hopefully we can clarify, because we've used lots of different products. We've hit a lot of walls, solved problems, gone through things. So just throwing that out there.
That'd be amazing.
I'd like to
Ryan, if you were-
participate in the finance stuff, and education and professional services will be my jam.
Okay, I'm putting down Keith, Eric, Crystal. Hey, Ryan, would you be interested in being a part of this finance group?
Yeah, I can join it. Just I just kind of fell into it just because it was one of those things. It was very similar to what you're saying. It's like, oh, it's important, we need this. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. But it's not really like, it's not what I'm getting up in the morning for, you know what I'm saying? But happy to be there in the beginning to kind of help guide in any way I can.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't know that finance is any of our passions. You probably don't end up in this group if it is. But yeah, I think it's, you know, I think if you have experience and a modicum of interest, that's super valuable.
Yeah, I'm interested, but yeah, time is a precious resource. But I mean, I guess we're all journals and creatives here. I'd be happy to help out like marketing stuff if need be. That's kind of my role at the moment as well. I'm planning around that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I started a marketing one and I put you there. Would you like me to put you on the finance group, and you can get invitations, and if you feel like you want to come to those invitations to the finance group, great. And if you don't have time, we totally understand.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
So marketing, and Crystal, what was I've got, okay, Jennifer put down, she wrote something in the chat.
I think she was promotions and events. I know that's her real well.
So we've got promotions, events. And then you said something else as well, Crystal.
Yeah, I could spearhead education and professional services. I'm going to be doing a ton of education at school and then teaching Buddhist blockchain and then teaching my mentors. So
Buddhist blockchain.
I like to teach. I know. It's going to be great.
You said education and professional services.
Yeah, if they end up lumped together. If not.
Okay, so we have a promotion. I think so. Those are so we've got finance, marketing, promotions and events, and then education, professional services. The thing that is kind of missing here, it feels like, is like a community. You know, and I think like you know,
Can
professional
take
networks,
that.
like
This is Amy.
Great.
Uh,
Great, thank you. Okay. So the buckets I've got here are finance, marketing, events, education, and then community and the. So I guess I would look at you know, professional services, Crystal, like that. That's kind of like more like outward. We're thinking like that's almost like kind of, you know, like offering consulting type stuff. Is that what you were thinking?
I think so. Just kind of based on our ongoing conversations about it. And I don't know that they need to be lumped together. Just you had lumped them together earlier.
Okay.
They can definitely be separated.
Right. I wrote because I wrote down professional services and professional network. And like the professional network, I guess I'm putting that in like community. So that's like, you know, our network, like right here, the JournoDAO network of, you know, people that we're working with, and then professional services is like services we're offering to the wider world. Does that make sense to delineate it that way?
Yeah.
And then that also, that kind of outward facing services for the wider world can also kind of be lumped in with education because it's outward facing.
Yeah, and they kind of overlap a lot. I mean, I think you're going to have to educate to provide professional, you know, they kind of just coexist. And if it grows, then you can obviously split one off and put support beneath it.
And so then there's another, so one other thing, like a sixth thing that I would add that maybe would be the last one would be like the incubator / like business development. Like, and I mean, you could just to keep that separate from finance, because like the finance is like enough on its own, you know. Does that sound right? So then we've got six. We've got finance, we've got marketing, events, education and professional services, community and professional network, and then incubator and business development. As if all that wasn't enough. Anyone interested in spearheading a circle around the incubator?
I'd be interested in that.
Cool. Right, that was Ryan, right? Awesome.
Also, I want to pressure John to join the finance committee, because just from listening to your podcast, you know more than you say you do. So it'd be helpful to have your knowledge there, but you don't have to.
I'm bad with money. I'm a good hype guy.
Yeah.
You know, in
It's
Cypress
true,
Hill, get the hype guy in the background. You know, like, so I can just kill it, man.
It's pretty true though, John, for not just finance, but a lot of things in Web3 and crypto. Like, I know you're just this 46-year-old guy in the corner, but like the amount of times I have a question, John, somewhere, either from the other side of the room, in Denver or in Zoom, pipes up and knows everything about that topic.
Maybe a research working group.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if there's ever a multi-sig needed, I'm on several multi-sigs just because I'm like super obsessive and easily pingable. In case anybody needs me to sign a multi-sig, I'm always there. But research might be something. So.
Okay. And so just to kind of coordinate this, so is everyone that's here in our Discord? Is that going to be the best place to kind of organize? Because we've all, if not, we've got, you know, our forum. Trying to figure out the best tools right now.
I think having a special section for all the circles is how we do it over at All for Climate. That way anybody can jump in and see what's going on, but then everybody also knows exactly where they can check in with their individual groups once it gets active.
On Discord.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, I just noticed that you joined, Micah Ray. You wanna, I don't know how long you've been listening, but if you're at a place where you can say hi and introduce yourself, that'd be awesome. Maybe. Micah wrote in the chat, still trying to get my head around ambitions and objectives of the DAO and how I can participate and add value. Well, I would be, if you're in the, let's see.
He's got his hand raised, it looks like, so I think you have to, do you have to? Yeah.
Oh, wow, I've been off mute this whole time. I'm just a really quiet person. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Hi, how is everybody? I'm really happy to be here. I was invited by Amy a handful of days ago. Couldn't get in the Discord right away, but have recently joined. And I've been working as a crypto journalist for about 1.5 years. I was nominated for Best Written Coverage of NFTs at NFT NYC in November last year. And I'm really excited about writing about arts and culture, lifestyle type stuff, not really coins up and down, kind of really averse to the clickbaity type of stuff. And I really want to write sophisticated articles and think pieces, deeper dives into, you know, art, culture, innovation, the builders and artists, etc., and techniques, how people are using blockchain technology in really new and interesting ways. So as far as contributing, I did have a bit of DAO experience with Harmony One. I was in a governance DAO, and essentially their goal was to have 10,000 DAOs by the year 2026. So they started with 9 governor DAOs that each would oversee 10 DAOs, kind of like holding their hand, best practices, getting through some of those, you know, sticking areas that keep DAOs back or make them kind of immobile and just kind of fizzle away. And then those 10 would then do the same thing for 10. And then by 2026, there would be 10,000. So there was some best practices that I've learned. But other than that, I would say if there was a point of interest for me, having worked to this point and really sort of freelanced to get in where I fit in, it would be nice if we really understood the landscape in terms of which publications are looking for freelancers, you know, can assignments be assigned to this group, knowing there's this real competent cadre of scribes, you know, will we actually farm out, you know, services? I know that gets a little weird in Web3 because you don't want to be bigging up rug pulls and you don't want to have to do so much due diligence. You don't know if you can take the gig. There's a lot of complications, but I'm just curious, you know, are we doing things like that, including like some comprehensive understanding of all the publications in existence now and how we can sort of utilize them, you know, both sides as resource and as outlets.
Sounds like a job for research group. It's on it.
You know, and also we've wanted to get like a decent job board going for a while. I mean, there's a channel in the Discord, but there's not very much in there. So yeah, that's something that I think under community and professional network, just keeping an eye on opportunities for sure. And even coming up with, like as a freelance writer, something that is helpful is there's these market guides that are out there where you can basically, you can get like huge books if you're a freelancer, where it shows like every publication and like, what they pay freelancers. And I could see something like that being particularly useful.
Yeah, for Web3 specifically. I
Right.
did pick up a gig recently for a Houston and Dallas print publication, and it's almost like you're writing Web 2.5. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for that too, for those of us who really understand the space and can break things down like super simply. There could be even non-crypto publications that want to cover certain stories. I would love to kind of, because I'm definitely not a money person, but in terms of kind of the out-facing, hey, this is what we do. These are opportunity, ways that we can capitalize on our groups, our hive mind and our talent. I'd love to get around stuff like that, and just kind of be the glue wherever, it works out.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I love putting these concepts, like these high level concepts in lowbrow language. It's just, yeah, if you can do that, it's like an art almost. And yeah, that Web 2.5, I want to use that if that's okay. That's a really good little tagline.
Yeah, because it's so many, crypto curious, and I'm finding that out from my LinkedIn newsletter. They're hovering and they're reading stuff and they're like trying to figure it out. So they need stuff that's more like use casey and things that where they're like, okay, I see how my venture can do this, or my entity can use blockchain. But yeah, thanks for allowing me to join. And I'm really curious to know, like, who's writing where and what kind of writers we have. Are there bios in Discord for everybody? Can I catch up somehow that way?
Not bios per se, no. But as you were talking, I was thinking we should probably, it'd be good to get basically a membership directory going. Whether it's where people can kind of declare that they're available for work or for writing assignments and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind sharing my Twitter and LinkedIn, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, but within someone's comfort level that you can put that information like in a directory.
I mean, are a lot of you guys like working for specific publications, or are most of you freelancers like myself, trying to get a sense of like what makes up the group and how many members total?
I would say, so I mean, in the Discord, there's about 115 people, and we've kept it like it's mostly an application process. We just haven't thrown the link out there to kind of keep bots and everyone else away and keep it curated a little bit. I would say actually of like the people that are most active in the community, I think I'm one of the few people working full-time as a journalist, and also Crystal is pretty active in photojournalism and on the academic side of things.
Awesome.
But I think it's actually more people interested in building for Web3 and journalism. It's kind of funny, like it was kind of started as a place to catch folks like you as people filter into, although it sounds like you've been around for quite a while, but as people filter into Web3 from traditional media like I did. Like I wanted to create a group to find other people, and frankly, not a lot of them are showing up from like the traditional media world. So yeah, I would say the majority probably aren't actively working as professional writers.
Okay, so some builders, but that's really good too, because I remember asking Amy, does it kind of, help people who have ventures, or is it a venture itself? And that's what I was trying to figure out. Am I joining, kind of like a group that is going to maybe launch a publication or something, or is it in support of people who have, from anything from a newsletter to working for somebody?
Yeah, like we do have a mirror and a blog, but I mean, we're definitely not like a full-fledged uh, media outlet. Although like, I don't think that's out of the question. I mean, I would actually personally like to see more of that. Like Keith has written some really excellent essays that we've published, and Crystal's done some writing as well. And yeah, I would like to see more of that. It's not like we're looking to like, challenge CoinDesk or anything like that. That's definitely not in the cards. But yeah, like more of, I would love to see more of like what you and John were just talking about, the kind of higher level, like kind of thought leadership stuff. I think that's definitely in line, and figuring out ways to get paid to do it too is always nice.
Yeah, that part. And that's interesting because Web3 generally doesn't have ads. And
Oh, we lost you.
we're folding, so it's like, well, so who actually pays now? And then Web3 is the creator economy. So that's basically saying, well, hey, if you want to be written about, pay me to write about it. But then there's that has its own connotation. And if you don't divulge that, it's really complicated, the space. I'm sorry, am I losing you guys? Because I think my connection's wonky.
You're a little in and out. I think we got most of it.
Yeah, and I would say I'd like the DAO to be able to support kind of like what you said. If somebody has their own kind of freelance, I don't know whether it's a business or venture or whatever you want to call it, that JournoDAO can like support that in some way, even if it's just like consulting or promotional or whatever. I've wanted to get us kind of promoting everybody's content from within the DAO and create kind of like I don't know, like a Twitter mob or whatever, where we can kind of elevate the signal of DAO contributors.
Yeah, I mean, the Bankless DAO AV Guild started off, it was the idea of gathering a bunch of audiovisual professionals, in there, but it really ended up just a bunch of people who weren't professionals showing up and really wanting to learn. And we all ended up just kind of knowledge sharing and exchanging ideas and researching and then collaborating on a bunch of stuff. Now some really good content is coming out of the AV Guild. And then as a result, it's getting the attention of a lot of extra DAO corporations, projects, and other type of stuff like that, of people wanting to use our skills and our services and our research and our contributions. So, maybe something similar could happen with this. Most of us in here, I guess, are not necessarily seasoned journalists, but there is definitely an ambition and a will. And I'm coming like you, I'm coming from the Web3 side. I want to learn about traditional journalism. Maybe I can figure out how to translate that proficiently into a traditional media space. Yeah. So.
I mean, certainly if there's somebody that can bring gigs in, it's definitely going to be me. And I say that because of the capacity in which I'm in the community now. And there's way too many stories and not enough journalists. And this whole idea about it being, a creator economy means the writer with his or her own audience now is the one that determines. The thing is, if you say, well, I'm going to write the best stories out there, that's not necessarily going to pay rent, because then you have interests with budgets and they want to pay, traditional publicity doesn't work and marketing is weird. So like things like an article, it works. So like, for instance, this morning, I'm on a call, this company they're basically like a concierge service. You buy their NFT, you're like a member, So they want to put out articles kind of regularly about the lifestyle of people, wealthy, globe-trotting, jet-setting crypto people that they want to be able to like infuse without really it being a commercial. So these people are talking 2 or 3 or more articles, that I can funnel some of this stuff because my bandwidth is only so much. So then the question becomes, well, out of the writers that are here, who's interested in writing about what, or who feels, even if they don't consider themselves a writer by trade, can they at least write a good enough foundation where maybe others in the group can actually be a small editing team? Maybe we actually can generate revenue. It's not out of the question. Especially with all the money coming into space, and they see this as credibility, that it's a third party, that it's not a tweet, it lasts much longer, it's pretty much like forever. So these are things I'm trying to do. I do have a newsletter, which would mean I'm trying to curate not just what I write, but like the best kind of arts and culture writing, which would mean that list of 15,000 could include articles written by people in our group that kind of fit that. I would just put them right in through there, and it would help to really get kind of people reading these, some traffic. And I just want to be able to scale in a way that I still feel like I have my, kind of sovereign entity here, but I can plug into a bigger machine, which also means it's better for me to get that article done written by somebody else than just say, no, I can't do it, or have it just kind of go away. Like that it might actually, because no one's actually functioning like this. There's no like writer's room, I don't think. Maybe someone can correct me on that with some of the larger entities. How did they respond to news? Are we trying to beat people to news? Or are we really writing like more thoughtful stuff where we can take time and turn it in a week later and stuff like that?
Are you mostly seeing like newsy stuff or more like long-term?
Yeah, less newsy, because that's just kind of, our coins up or down, or who just did this deal, or what art sold for this. It's not really, everybody talks about that. But the more entities that want to be profiled, the builders, and then they use these articles basically to generate interest, maybe to raise money or just for provenance, just to establish themselves in the space. So as more Web2 people come in, they all know the value of this stuff. I think the Web3 community, the crypto bros and all that, they're very much about tweets and parties, and it's a different influence, but a lot of that's fleeting. And so what remains, when you really look back at this time, you're going to find articles. That's my take anyway.
Well, have you looked at PubDAO at all?
No.
They're kind of along the lines, I think, of what you're saying, where there's like, it's more of a transactional thing and maybe less about like the journalism of writing like an objective, like external story about a topic or a company or something like that. But, like for a story that you're writing about a company and they're the ones commissioning it, then I think you can go like through PubDAO and do that. Eric, is that right? Are you still there?
It's a real tightrope to this, because like, you don't want it to be that. So even today with them talking about their concierge, I said, you should angle the article in a way where it's really just talking about the culture of it and interviewing some people who kind of live that way and are hopping conference to conference, and you weave it in subtly, because but it still is what it is. And maybe just that idea that it's pay for. Yeah, I don't know. I just, otherwise, how do writers make their income in Web3?
Yeah, PubDAO, I think, is like more like kind of offering like writing as a service like that. But it's also the kind of thing where I could see just promoting the opportunity for writers out there who want to make a buck. Like I personally wouldn't be able to to do a gig like that, because it would like literally violate like contracts I have with other outlets. But like not everyone is in that position, and I think it's yeah, exactly what you say. Like there's plenty of freelance writers who do like journalism, and then they do more like what I guess I would consider paid content like that. And you know, you can keep those, you can have both those streams of income. And in my more distant past, I've definitely done that stuff. And yeah, you can do quite well at it, actually.
I think what we've talked about would be more along the lines of like an aggregate subscription model where we have we're aggregating like and curating a lot of quality content that's just kind of it's not commissioned, but just kind of done by a writer or an investigative journalist. And then we have enough people subscribing to like the JournoDAO like feed or organization or whatever. Maybe enough founder NFTs are like changing hands that we're generating enough revenue to just like, you know, pay for the amount of like content that like a certain person contributes or something like that, rather than like what you're talking about. But that it's always going to be that tension, because I could see like in the local paper example, you know, you're going to have like local businesses are often like the subject of like local paper stuff, and then like where does it, you know, what's an ad and what's just informing the community about like one of their members who has a business or something like that. So I think that's always,
I think it's all fine. I mean, I think it's like you know, sponsored content, paid content, whatever. It's all fine. It's in the transparency of, you know, how it's labeled, and you know, just understanding like how it was paid for.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I'm exploring and trying to figure out, you know. So I was curious kind of where, you know, what people are experiencing out there, because I don't otherwise see, you know, I'm trying to develop a tokenized model as well, kind of a tokenized community model. But yeah, you know, the money has to come from somewhere, or I don't know how they're sustainable. And then I don't know how the industry is sustainable. You know, I guess the Coinbases of the world and stuff, those are probably loss leaders, their publications, or maybe they are charging for ads. Do they have ads in on their pages?
CoinDesk?
Yeah, like CoinDesk, and like, I mean, Decrypt is pretty big. Some of them are pretty big, and I just feel like maybe they're kind of loss leaders within these larger umbrella companies.
I would throw a rumor in there. If anyone wants to correct me on this, Ryan Selkis was releasing a rumor that CoinDesk may be getting bought if DCG goes public. It's possible. And on Coinbase, they have their own entity that used to be Bison Trail, and then they bought it. Now they own it. Just tying into the variant fund work that I'm doing.
Awesome.
Well, Eric, but ideally, so I've worked at a lot with sponsored content, and I'm kind of the mind, I can't think of the time like in a vacuum where you'd actually want sponsored content to exist, right? Because I mean, as a reader, like, why would I read this story that's sponsored content versus this story that's not? I don't like, wouldn't I want the thing that wasn't paid to be told to me? Like, otherwise I can go on the company's website or like the company blog or whatever their output is.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, each publication can make up their own policy with regards to that. I'm just not trying to throw all sponsored. What?
I'm saying I hope we don't need it. Like, I think there are like more better ways to get paid so that we don't need, I think sponsored content was like a stopgap band-aid solution that I'm hoping will kind of like leave in the dust, because I just don't see how it's good for the end user or readers.
I would say this on this point in Web3, because it's a creator economy, these are real artists and real great story. It's not the Web2 thing where like you're trying to put lipstick. This is like you get to write some really, like, it's because it's so much noise in the space, they're trying to rise above the noise, and those that really value this and understand what it is, they realize that a publisher isn't looking for them to write about them. So do they have an opportunity to hire a good writer to tell the story that the publication normally would pay for, but now they get to, in the creator economy, commission it? You know, so I haven't really come across anything quite. The only thing that really maybe I realized I didn't want to do is write about like collections and tokens and stuff like that, because I have no idea sometimes who I'm speaking to, and I don't know if it's a rug pull. And you know, it was just a mess last year with all of that. And so I realized, all right, I'm not going to write about it for you to like put your money into or buy in that way. You know, and that helped a lot. But yeah, I think it's a different landscape just based on who your clientele actually is. And that's just the note I would, add to all this.
I could definitely see that. And we saw that. So I was at Medium with our sponsored publications there. And like, at first, I could imagine like the people who are approaching sponsored content now are relatively like, I don't know, new to it. But like at first it sounds like a great idea, and you're just like, yeah, whatever, write whatever you want. And we did some like really awesome sponsored content stories that were just like, you know, what the writer wanted to do anyway, and they got paid much better than they would have otherwise. But then like as these relationships develop, if you have anyone that, or a business behind it, then they're going to want to quantify the return that they're getting for that spend. And then they're never going to be happy with it. And they're going to try and squeeze it more and more to get more ROI out of it. So there's kind of this like honeymoon period, but I think like as the industry matures, I just think it's a bad primitive that will eventually kind of like the incentives are just all wrong. I think there's ways to like definitely get great content out of it. It's just I would just put my hand up for leaving that behind if we can, and just getting people paid for doing good work no matter what.
I do see how if it came down to the highest bidder type of a thing and you're trying to maximize your time, you end up with entities and stuff like that can actually pay the top amount. But it's definitely curation about it, and but yeah, these are really good points. It's stuff to think about. And from here, if anybody's coming across other ways for writers to actually work in the space, then I'm all open to hear them. I'm actually from my end chasing sponsors for the newsletter, kind of like an in general thing like you were talking about, where nothing is actually written about them, but they get to present this curated news. And I'll have to get back to you guys on if that's going to work. It sounds great for me, but it goes to, like you're saying, like then they want to really quantify what they're getting out of this. So then, they're going to start leaning.
All right, back. Yeah. So I don't mean to poo-poo it. I'm saying like on the ground now, like sponsored content is like a necessary ingredient for people to get paid or whatever. I'm just saying, like in the utopia that we're trying to build or whatever, I can't see a reason why it would be there, but I'm open to it.
I got to run here too in a sec, Eric. I just wanted to make sure, did we close the loop on the groups and everything that we were diving into before I run?
We've got it in the clarity doc. We
Okay,
put everything
perfect.
down, and then I figure we follow up on Discord.
Okay, awesome. My boozy bubbles have been poured and I must go cook dinner for Mama Street.
Okay.
So bye guys.
Sounds great.
Have a good one.
Bye.
See ya.
I probably
Bye,
need to leave.
Crystal.
Bye, Crystal. I probably need to leave too, but it's like absolutely pouring rain, so I've been procrastinating going outside. I guess like the one thing, like, yeah, with the sponsored content, it's tough to maintain the kind of I think like uncompromised purity that you're talking about, Keith, because I mean one of our founders is Focher, right? One of our founder NFT holders is Focher, and you know, they're definitely you know, there is a synchronicity in their mission and ours, but they're also a for-profit startup that part of the reason they bought an NFT is because they think they're a sponsor, you know, and so like, you know, I don't know. It's like there's that, and then there's like traditional advertising, and then there's paid content, and they're all kind of it's all that capitalism interface with journalism that is hard to avoid. Like the purity of NPR, PBS doesn't even exist. You know, like they have underwriters and not advertisers, underwriters. So it's like, which to me is why like I just put the standard at transparency, that like the relationship, the fact that there is a money relationship with this publication and this sponsor paid content, you know, whatever it is, just that relationship is disclosed. Like until we get to the utopia, like I kind of think that's the best we can hope for.
Well, I'm okay with like the corporation as benefactor or whatever. I think what is not ideal about it is if they like what we're doing, and this is kind of like with Focher, or like Matt just likes what we're doing and he's like supporting us, and then but then when it becomes like, oh hey, can you change what you're doing to fit my needs more, and then the money is part of that. Like I think that that's where and that's really hard to like fend off, not at the beginning, you know, like it's really hard to pull back on that. So I would just like advocate.
Yeah, that might be the element. The element that's missing might be, you know, just a clear delineation of what your money as a sponsor, advertiser, whatever entitles you to, and what it is not entitled you to. You know, the traditional firewall between sales and editorial, which I don't think that firewall is set up very well at all in Web3. So that might actually be what we're talking about.
But it's kind of built into the sponsored content because you're like, well, I'm buying this content, so I should have a say in what it is. Like this content would not exist if I didn't buy it. So, you know, can you change this thing? Because I don't really like it. So it's like, I don't know.
I think if JournoDAO can do a formatted agreement letter to kind of ease that burden of asking them if or letting them know that you can't be bought, that whatever you wrote is what you're gonna write, whether they, you know, their money is there or not or something, I don't know. But if we can do an agreement wherein they cannot buy your article out for any reason once you start writing it, and they can make their deposit first, it's non-refundable. But anyway, if we can make that formatted document and be transparent when you write those articles, can that work? And by the way, welcome, Micah. This is Amy. Glad to hear from you.
I think we drove Micah away already.
Oh, okay. Hey, Micah, welcome.
Oh,
This
there,
is
Micah's
Amy.
back. Okay.
Thank you for coming over. Appreciate you. So that was my idea, I guess.
I think that's
Both
a good
my
idea.
parents both my parents were writers before, and they had a trade magazine that they worked for, and they write an article about a company. The company does not really sponsor the article, but the vendors did. So it's like they post advertising in that magazine to support the company that we're writing about, or my mom and my dad's writing about. So I don't know if that is a model that you all can use. So I'm just trying to pass some information. This is Amy.
I missed a little of that because I kind of got bounced out and came back. Could you just maybe summarize that real quick again? So
I don't know when you left, Micah, but I was suggesting maybe JournoDAO can create a document agreement wherein whatever you write, they cannot coerce you to bend their way, but they have to make that payment before you start writing. But anyway, that would just kind of cut down on them trying to force you to create something that's not. I guess I know the transparency for journalists is very important. And the other one that I was suggesting was, well, I'm not suggesting, but my mom and my dad used to write for a trade magazine, and the company that is being featured in the magazine, there'll be probably 3, 4, or 5. Whoever is the vendors are the one that does the pay for the advertising, and that sponsored the magazine or the printing of the magazine for that reason. So I don't know if that's something we can adopt on that with our JournoDAO. That's just an idea I'm throwing out there. Again, welcome, Micah. Thank you. You can make it.
thank you. That's really helpful. I'm thinking vendors, that would be the advertisers, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, actually, yeah.
Or no.
The vendors are the one advertising in behalf of the whatever tie-up money connection in that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this is a pretty rich topic. Maybe we should discuss it like on a Twitter space or something. We should probably wrap up here, so I gotta drop off too. But I think, Amy, those are good ideas. I think you can, structure something definitely to manage the risks of that relationship.
Thanks, guys. So for a year and 3. Okay, so I started, and I'll make this really quick. I know people are going to go, and I really appreciate the time, but I started with publication called NFTs Daily. It was started by the Krasenstein brothers, who started the Hill Reporter, and then they quickly just shuttered it after a few months because they got involved in some crypto venture, BitCloud or something. So they just shut it down. So then a DAO run publication started. I believe it was like 70 some people started this DAO that was going to start a publication. And they paid me basically 0.3 USDC per word for my articles. And we would like pitch our stories, or, sometimes they would be assigned, but you realize the ones that were assigned, you could quickly tell that they were actually being paid. It became a bigger deal down the road when we realized the publication was doing all this stuff anyway. Or like they were just really trying to generate views and subscribers so they could charge for these spaces at like conferences, which seemed much more lucrative. It's just treacherous territory when people who are starting these publications are not committed to journalism, and it's a model that's really about the revenue, and that's the difficult part. So now that that publication is kind of it just a lot of DAOs fizzle and die. No one wants to do the real work. People stop even voting, and it just comes down to now it looks centralized because you got 5 or 10 people running the whole thing. So that eventually happened, and then it just fell. It went from 20 writers to just me, and now it's a zombie DAO. So I'm just trying to find, well, what's next and figure this out.
Yeah, well, I think I hope that you get involved here, and I think that there's definitely room for what you're describing. I would go check out PubDAO and then see how what you think of it, and see if how it should differentiate from that, and be more focused on journalism. But let's continue that discussion either at the next town hall or on Discord or wherever. All right, I think we should wrap it. I mean, it's fun to talk this long, but
Goodbye. See you all tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see you all soon. Thanks for coming. All right, bye.
Bye.